I think you've been lied to about Commonplace notebooks. Especially if you're a creative person, which you probably are, is probably why you were suggested this video. I personally like to crochet. I make amigurumi patterns and I sell them at markets, and I'm using a crochet hook to hold up my mic, so it's a key part of my identity. You're probably a creative in so many other ways, and I'm so happy that you're here, but we're here to talk about how you've been lied to about a commonplace notebook, or more so, the myths of it. I've seen a keen overlap between the creative community and the journaling community, and I more so relate myself to the creative community, but I have such a deep love for the journaling community. And it's very easy for creative people like you and I to fall into that deep dive of the journaling world and everything in there. Creative people love stationery, journaling people love stationery. Creative people love pretty things, journaling people love pretty things. And so many art supplies also overlap. The washi tape can be used in both art and journaling. The markers can be used in both art and journaling. Artists who enjoy doing casual doodles will enjoy the journalists that also do casual doodles in their planner. And while I personally find myself more on the creative side, and you probably do too, there's a deep love for the journaling community. My For You page is full of journaling ideas. I have a Filofax, I have a Commonplace notebook. And through digesting all of that content, I've just really had the deepest desire to talk to you personally watching this video about what a commonplace is for creatives, because it's not what it is for journaling people. Let's start with the pipeline of creative to journaling burnout, because I do see that pipeline in the creative community fairly often. As a creative individual, you have a lot of ideas flowing through you. You have so many plans. You could be prepping for art markets. You could be planning YouTube content, Instagram content. You could be planning what fandoms you want to create art for. And with all these ideas in your head, one key thing that seems like it would be obvious to do is to just write it down in your phone, in your notes app. But creative people, while digital art is wonderful and many people love digital art, tend to not want to rely on their phone so heavily. And I'm not entirely sure, because I can only speak from my personal experience and what I've witnessed, but it's not in a creative person's nature to go towards technology as an answer and to hope for it. For example, many artists are heavily against using AI, and I can't fully blame them. For creatives, it seems like there's such an intent there to be human and to be present, which shifts them to more analog ways of documentation and ways of planning. Through that, many creative people will then just start writing down their ideas. But what they do is that they grab a random piece of paper, anything that's around them, and they write on that, and then they lose it. And they'll cycle through this problem a few times. And this is where the two sides of the journaling community and the creative side overlap, because there is a shared love of analog items and keeping track of almost your own humanity, your ideas, your philosophies, the things that have come from you, keeping track of them and having almost like a second brain. And also the journaling community, while there are some that like it very minimalistic, there are quite a few that also have a creative outlet with their journaling, where they decorate with a bunch of stickers, they make it pretty, they get washi tapes, they get markers. And that overlap bridges the two communities when it comes to the For You page or the algorithm of, I think you will enjoy this. You both like analog items. You both like pretty things, for lack of better words. This might be good for you. I believe the first journaling item that most creatives will be exposed to would be the bullet journal. The bullet journal, which took off a hot minute ago but still very active, was a whole system of habit tracking and planning out your weekly layouts, and it more so morphed away from the original idea of a bullet journal you have a whole section dedicated to the new year part of your journal, where you have your year at a glance, you have a quote page, you have just a page you decorated for January, and you have like memory keeping where you can put a photo for every month, things like that. Some people say that you should have an index so you can easily find the pages that you are writing about and can easily flip to them. And after that, for every month, you're going to do a page for that month of like March, and you're going to decorate the whole page. You're then going to flip it. You're going to put your habit trackers there, and you're going to come up with all the habits you want to track. And every day, you're going to go back in, you're going to mark it, or you're going to color something that shows you did that habit. You're going to have your weekly pages. After your monthly page, you're going to do a monthly calendar layout. Then you're going to have your weekly pages, and you're going to decorate all of those. You're going to label them. And for people that love bullet journaling and are more so in the journaling community, this is wonderful and it's great for them. They love the structure it provides, but also they don't necessarily need the structure, is what I'm finding. It's more so this is a way for them to express their creativity with something that they already are very comfortable with. They are comfortable planning. They enjoy planning. They enjoy documenting what they're doing each day. And that's where it falls off for creatives. Because for the creative, what they're writing down on the random scraps of paper that they had was not what they were doing each day. It was the ideas they were having. And so many creatives try to do a bullet journal. They love decorating it. They love doing all that, but they never use it. And that's okay. And then they give up on the bullet journal. I have quite a few that I had started that I never finished again. It's okay. I guess you could say that's myth number one of the journaling creative situation, is that not everyone journals for that structure. And in fact, in my opinion, bullet journalists already have that structure in the mind. They're already very comfortable with it. They're not forcing themselves to align with it. They are expressing themselves through decorating it, but they're using it very intentionally. Whereas creatives, that is not what they needed. But I'm not saying don't give it a try. Always give it a try. You never know what works for you. And if it doesn't work, and by doesn't work, I mean that you don't look forward to doing it and you actively don't do it, probably not the right thing for you. And that's okay. Bullet journaling is the first myth of a creative when it comes to journaling, where they're like, oh, this is going to work so well for me. It'll be a place to keep everything. But then it doesn't focus on the problem that the creative had, which was not losing items. And then usually creatives will give up on the bullet journal, or they'll keep trying it every month or so and not succeed with it, but they will keep watching content about it because watching the content makes them motivated to try again. So they'll keep watching the content, and slowly that content will go from bullet journaling to other planners. It could be the Hobonichi Weeks, it could be the Hobonichi Cousins, it could be the Traveler's Notebook. They're going to go through a few iterations, and they're going to slowly get to the one that's going to work. And in my opinion, the one that works is the Commonplace Notebook. But that doesn't mean that the Commonplace Notebook that you're going to see a journaling person talk about is the kind that you should use. The journaling community reminds me of a Virgo because they do love planning and structure, and they like to know exactly what they should do. So with that comes a whole guideline of what your Commonplace Notebook should have or should contain, or how you should use it. And that's not good for you. If you're a creative person, that's not good for you. Having that rigid structure when that's not what you needed and wasn't your goal in the first place isn't good for you. And there are many other ways that you can achieve it too. I'm not saying don't plan ever and never do this, never do that. I recommend, if you do like the planning part, you need that structure, but you struggle with it, to get a Filofax, which is a ring system, and you can literally, whenever you want, swap out the pages. Filofax. If you want me to do a video on this, let me know. But we're talking about a Commonplace notebook. First myth, you don't need a specific brand. The key one I've seen for Commonplace notebooks are the tiny moleskins or the field notes. You don't need that. You don't need that. The journaling community is very focused on what can handle fountain pens and what has the least amount of bleed through and what can handle their specific pens the best, what feels the best to write with. While creatives are probably going to be more focused on the texture of the paper, how the journal feels, how customizable the journal is. This is my Commonplace notebook. It's not a field notes. It's not a moleskin. It's not a miniature travels notebook. It's not a pocket anything. It is one of a 3-pack of miniature sketchbooks that I found at Hobby Lobby. The whole 3-pack cost me about $2 because reality is that it's not marketed to journaling people. It's marketed to artists, and it's marketed as a miniature on-the-go sketchbook that is only being sold for $2. In fact, this is less than $2. It was a pack of 3 for $2. I picked it up on a whim because I knew that I wanted a small book to write in. And it just blew my mind because it feels natural to me. As an artist, I love the feeling of sketchbook pages. And this has sketchbook pages. It has a beautiful texture and a beautiful color that I love. And also, for me personally, it is blank. It's not lined. I can do whatever I desire. If I want to draw images on my book, if I want to write down ideas, if I want to make a whole calendar, planning out events. And that's leading me into my next myth. So, first myth, you don't need a specific notebook. You don't need a traveler's notebook. You don't need a field notes. You don't need a tiny moleskin. Anything that feels good for you can be your Commonplace notebook. The next myth, or the next thing that you don't need to follow, the next myth is something that you just don't need to follow. And again, reiterating this, the journaling community loves structure. They love form. They love direct items to do. So you will watch videos of a Commonplace notebook where they're like, oh yeah, the Commonplace notebook is where you only put down all the quotes that you love. And that's all you'll use it for. Or they're like, oh yes, you also need to have a Commonplace notebook for all of your dreams. And only your dreams. It's a book only for that. And then luckily you do have some that actually embrace the idea of a Commonplace notebook a little bit more intensely, where they're like, oh yeah, you write down your habits for that day, you write down any thoughts you have, and you just go through it. And then the key part here is that everything you write down, you then need to track and then put it in another journal. That is one that they love doing. They love taking it and putting it in another journal. So they treat their Commonplace notebook like a catch-all for their random ideas they have, which is great, but then they have that structure that is natural to them, and they have a whole other journal ecosystem. A journal ecosystem is a very big thing where they put what they need where. They write down a recipe that they like in their Commonplace. They have a whole recipe section to write down recipes that they find. They have quotes that they love. They have a whole area where they designate those quotes where they love. That's the biggest myth of a Commonplace book, and anything in that case for creatives is that no, you don't need to follow any rules when it comes to your Commonplace notebook. Your Commonplace notebook should be as unique to you as your fingerprint. Doesn't have to make sense to anyone else. It's there because you used to write down your ideas on random scraps of paper and then lose it. It's there for you to keep your ideas in one spot and use it however your brain needs to. Because the only true problem is that you're not using it. If you stop using it, then something's wrong. And what I've found is that the less, at least for me personally, the less rigid I am with using my notebook, and the more I allow myself to do whatever I want with it in the moment, I use it. So don't worry about collecting all these quotes, and don't worry about having to fill pages with doodles, and don't worry about trying to make it make sense or to even have an index. Don't worry about any of that. And don't worry about cutting the bottom of it, which I have tried. Don't worry about cutting the bottom of it and putting it into a different journaling situation. You don't have to. You're not wrong by doing whatever you want with your Commonplace notebook. It is still a Commonplace notebook. And I hope that you get to use every page, and when you flip back through it, it fills you with joy, because you're the one that knows what every page meant, and you're the one that has gained the most out of a beautiful little book. All right. Thanks for listening to me. Bye, guys.